junior secondary and senior secondary. So junior secondary is from pre-primary, grade 1 to 3. That's junior primary. No longer lower. Senior primary from grade 4 to 7. Then junior secondary 8 to 9. Senior secondary remains with 2 qualifications. The way it was having, they are just split. The ordinal level starts first, the first 2 years, then AS in the final year. Just the way it's done, either in Mauritius, Singapore, they use GCO level. It's just the same like our ordinal level. So that one I think we all know. I don't need to go into details. Then what are the features of an ordinal level qualification, which is equivalent to IGCSE? As I said, it's a 2-year course, and we use a variety of assessment techniques to test oral, practical school skills, initiative, problem solving, knowledge and understanding, as well as application of skills. And we normally do so for those who were in classes some times ago, that if you check in every syllabus, there's what we call assessment objectives and specification grids, aligning examinations to skills to make sure that it's properly in line. So this qualification also, the ordinary level, we focus on application of knowledge from familiar to unfamiliar situations and some intellectual inquiry. In many subjects, be it physics, geography, development studies, in whatsoever, there are components for coursework, alternative to coursework, or practicals in labs. And we teach learners to work and communicate in English. Later on, I'll indicate in English there the change which is there, which has an impact on both CPD and teacher education. And it prepares learners for employment, just like anywhere in the world, and for further studies, be it progression to AS or to anywhere. This one also is just to flag to say, AS level we introduced, it's already existing elsewhere in the world. Even countries in SADC, in fact we are the first, Botswana to Swaziland, they are also in the process, of seeing how they can introduce AS, which is benchmarked on AS for Cambridge, as their exit qualifications. So it is a 1-year course after you finish ordinary level, and we don't have A level, but it's like half of A level. And then what are the characteristics of this qualification, which is AS level? 1, it encourages in-depth subject content on key concepts. That's where it differs. If you look at the syllabus for any subject, it looks short, but the depth of key themes is what is important, the depth of key themes, even if it is short, so they have to go deeper. And it encourages high-order thinking skills, which means a teacher should be able to cultivate those thinking skills. Less scaffolding questions compared with ordinary level IGCSE. So less scaffolding, it means now learners have to answer questions which are not giving a direction, a clear direction, like 1 + 1 is 2. So in order to do that, they have to be trained to do that. And teachers, or teacher education itself, must prepare teachers who can be able to do that, to train them to do that, to model them. And it's about more extended responses. If they were writing things like a short story and then asked to say, who is mother's uncle? The answer is John in English. Then 2 marks for John. That thing is over. If they used to do that in core, it's a more extended response in a logical and a critical way. And even the assessment itself becomes demanding and a challenge. A teacher must have skills. For teachers, to train teachers to do that, it means teacher educators or lecturers, they must facilitate the process to produce teachers who can be able to do that. And it encourages independent thinking. Application of knowledge is more, it's more deeper than in ordinary level. Handling and evaluation of information from different sources is encouraged in this qualification, including making judgments and recommendations. One time, I was arguing with my official to say, no man, how do this AS differs with A-level, with IBO, with South African and whatsoever? We are all in the same tradition. You just take the syllabus in question papers. Assessment objectives or the skills themselves in terms of weighting, it will tell you whether in mathematics that IBO, it's a bit demanding because of its concentration on this, on this, on this. AS is more on this and this and this. So the syllabus is expecting that. Then in our view, from basic education, what are some of the learner and the teacher attributes at senior secondary school? What is that which we wish learners should have upon completion of a senior secondary? And then the teachers who are supposed to teach that, what is it? So I just spotted out a few of them, although there are more. One, learners should be able to explore and evaluate ideas and the argument in a structured and critical way. You can see that the meaning there, it's more moving towards extended writing and the logical thinking. And equally so for a teacher, they must seek to understand their learners and the learners' educational needs, attention. And they should be able to communicate and defend their views and opinions, as well as respect for those of others. This is now a high-level kind of skill, which, if a percentage is more on a question paper, then it's a disaster, but there is an acceptable, percentage if you can check across all qualifications, be it IBO, South Africa, whatever. And then the kind of teachers who should be able to assist in that, they should strive to communicate a love for learning. And they encourage learners to engage actively in their own learning. You see? So now it seems the teacher is not only a question of having the content, but a soft skill to create a condition of joy and learning in a classroom. So it's kind of a value, it's needed. And learners should appreciate the importance of culture, context, and community. This is a question of holistic development of a child. Just by talking with a child for 30 minutes, you can determine on your own to what extent is this child standing in terms of values related to appreciation. Then a teacher in that respect should be a person who is concerned about holistic development of a child. Every individual. I think we're talking about that. And another one I can touch on, due to time also, is an issue of learners should welcome new challenges and meet them resourcefully and creatively and imaginatively. And they should understand themselves. Learners should not only understand a teacher, but themselves also. They should understand themselves. And they should be concerned about the process of learning. I'm happy with these two kids which were here yesterday. Some of them talked about the process of learning, not the product. So the teacher also, in order to facilitate that, They should be able to be learners themselves, to seek and build and develop their knowledge and skills in a cycle of reflection on practice involving research, evaluation, and adaptation. I think from yesterday up to today, that cycle of self-reflection and evaluation, when one is teaching on the process, learners and other things, it was emphasized more. And they should all be lifelong learners. Okay, lastly, on this contribution, is that learners are alive with curiosity and embodies the spirit of inquiry related to that one. And for teachers, in order to do that, teachers, they are passionate about their learning within and beyond the classroom. And they should be able to share their knowledge, skills with other fellows. The issue of networking, we emphasized yesterday. It's very, very important if we should be able to produce that teacher. Now, what are some of the challenges which we practically observed during the monitoring and evaluation exercise we did in a sample of schools last year and the rest of last year? So on junior primary, which is from grade pre-primary to grade 3, one of the problems, but I should indicate also here that there are many positive aspects. Maybe to use an adult language. There are many positive aspects, so we don't need to condemn us so much, but we need to take note. Lack of knowledge and skill to teach English as a second language. That one, to tell you the truth, from pre-primary to grade 7, it is a major problem in terms of methodologies. Major problem. In fact, what they are doing, they are just drilling and they're memorizing. We should observe a classroom practice. Then you wonder whether these teachers, is there NCPD? Were they trained like this? Or was they modeling the way we have seen from the professor here? So things as such should be taken. And very few of them apply learner-centered. The culture of teacher-centered, it seems it's still, okay, we know that classroom sizes, from one school to another, they are there, but I'm just talking about what we observed. But you'll get some few schools sometimes with 17 learners or 15. Then you wonder why this teacher is also doing like this. And pedagogical approach to ECD and the pre-primary, normally it's about play. I normally said praying because they are praying before they, It's about play, joy, funny, and all those kind of things. But it seems in most classes we visited, that is not happening. Then it's a problem whether it's really actually modeled and practiced, or they just learn knowledge about them. When you go and teach, play is very important. One of the plays is a cycle. You say, what? A cycle, you see? Okay? Then in knowledge to interpret the syllabus seems to, and inability to innovate. Teaching material, innovation. Once you enter the classroom, if a teacher is innovative in terms of teaching resources, even before you observe a classroom, these things have problems, especially on that level. Then on junior secondary, I'm about to finish. On senior primary, one of the biggest problems, we do have practicals and the projects, on the level of learners, be it in social studies or natural science educations. But when you check in their books, because when we go to schools, in most cases, what we do, even you can do so. I normally say, bring all the books for your learners and all the testing whatsoever. Because I know, in me, I know in terms of quality, assessment and all other things. I can take only 20 minutes, I can give feedback. So you'll get that projects and practical activities, either they name something as a project practical activity, but in fact it's not. It's a test. It's a test. Then you wonder what is happening. Although a teacher's manual is there, but they seem to be struggling. Secondly, if you do projects or practical activities, in most cases, you apply levels of marking, rubrics. And in order to do that, you should have the capacity to develop them and apply them, in a reliable way. There's a problem also there. There is a problem. And in natural science and physical education, as the one for the learning content, I stopped it because learning content, sometimes these teachers are also fun. They'll say, no, I don't have the right content to teach an environmental issue like deforestation for grade 6 on a basic level. Is that true? An adult who finished grade 12? But those are some of the things, but those ones, yes. But the most important one for you is the issue of natural science and health education. Natural science and health education is a basic foundation for physical science in junior secondary, and the later, physical science in junior secondary plus life science, which is later biology. The foundation phase, here, it's that subject. You'll get that some teachers are more competent on that area which has to do with biology and life science. But basics related to physics and chemistry, basics on the level of what, they find it difficult. So as a result, they selective teaching. So teacher education on this level, on that subject, that thing, it's very important. So teachers using textbooks and syllabus is one of them, yes. This one, I think they are repeating. But the last one, I should also emphasize, it's an issue of assessment. Assessment issue, how it should be done correctly and on a proper standard, it's a big problem in both junior, senior, and junior secondary phases. The understanding of a syllabus to align assessment to specification grids and assessment objectives in terms of levels of questions, it's really a problem. We visited one region, I won't mention the region because maybe the director is here, where a question was asked to say, what is the important resource in Namibia? It was a multiple choice for grade 5, grade 6. And then the options were water, uranium, gold, plus another one. Then you ask the teacher, but a child, how do you know the child? What is the right answer here? No, the right answer is water. So, but what if the child writes gold or uranium or grapes? These other options. No, they know already that last week I was teaching about water. Those kind of things. Okay, lastly, senior secondary is the issue of core and extended in English and the mathematics, especially in English. We had core, which is the lowest, whereby people are just answering by using 2 words, 3 words. It was done by 90% of schools and learners and the teachers. Now that it's no longer there, because we cannot tolerate as a nation, when are we going to move forward? It's one paper, the way we did in all subjects in 2004. They swim or sink, which means there's a problem for teachers who are struggling with core option. Teacher preparation also prepare teachers who can handle in terms of that change, including mathematics. Alternative to coursework or coursework itself is a problem. Extended response I talked about because of AS and the application of criterions. Very big problems. So we must make sure that we take care of those things. Pre-vocational subject teaching, we are working with UNAM, it's not much a problem, I think so. We know what we are, so the models we are working on. Yeah. A gap between basic education and others, that one we're talking about all the time, I think it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite the next speaker also to make her presentation. We also appreciate that you will be concise like the first speaker.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name, as it was introduced by Dr. Kudumo, I am Lloyd. My surname is Kapenda, appointed as a Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. I am going to stand in my director's feet, Ms. Eda Bon, a Director of Programs and Quality Assurance, and present to you the current challenges in quality teaching and learning in Namibian schools. So, the outline of the presentation will consist of organogram of the ministry, the enabling environment, strategic plan, core business, education, capacity. Then we will end the presentation with challenges that are faced by the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. I do not want to go deep into that, but just to highlight to you that we have the directorate which presented first, and we are programs and quality assurance. We also have national examination and assessment as directorate in formal education. We have the acts, the regulations, and the policies that are governing education and that are governing the employees in the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. If you look at the list, we have now the educator policy, which is highlighted there or darkened, which we drafted since 2017. And that educator policy is the one which is now we are thinking it's going to cater for the educator regulations. So more policies, then we have our own strategic plan, which have got quality, equity, efficiency, and effectiveness as themes. We also have our strategic objectives. We are trying to improve core skills in numeracy and literacy in basic education, and all the likes that we listed there. The core business of the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture is teaching and learning. But it is very challenging, as we are talking about the challenges, to have all those policies that we listed before, and we are trying to implement whatever is indicated in those policies in our schools. With education capacity, we have those number of schools as per IMIS 2017, and we also have around about 722,248 learners in our system that are distributed in schools like primary, secondary, and we have other schools like the schools that we are not utilizing our curriculum, or special schools are categorized as others. When it comes to the teachers, we have around about 29,947. We are about to reach 30,000. And amongst those teachers, 3,558 teachers are without teacher training. We have classrooms. Some of them are permanent. Some of them are prefabricated. We also have traditional classrooms, 1,797 of them, and we are hiring 215. So that also talks to the challenges. The teachers are using the same curriculum. We have a national curriculum for basic education, and according to the subjects, they are also using the same syllabus, and we have the same subject policy. Teachers are supposed to develop their own scheme of work, or in some cases, the regions are developing the scheme of work, regional scheme of work. We offer continuous professional development for teachers, and we are motivating them to integrate ICT. We once ran a test for English proficiency for teachers, and we have in-service training of underqualified teachers, which we started taken care by the University of Namibia in 2016. Through our collaboration with the university, more specifically the Directorate for Continuing Professional Development, Teaching and Learning Improvement, we have, through the UNESCO CFIT project, we benefited to have a virtual page or platform, which we call Copano, where we are normally saving our resource materials that are developed by the teachers. But the challenge is that many teachers, they are at the areas where they do not have access to internet, and then they cannot utilize this. The challenges that we are facing. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to provide all of those needs to the learners. But those are, the pictures are depicting the problems that, some of the problems that we have. It's either overcrowded classes, the safe water sometimes is not available, the classrooms, the textbooks, and all the like. When it comes to access, I don't know whether you can read those numbers, but if you look at the graph, the first graph, it's depicting the number of learners as per our 15-day school statistics in 2015 or 2014. Then those learners are, this year, they are in, the ones that were in grade 1. They are currently in grade 4. If you look at that graph, you can see a reduction in terms of numbers. Our learners are disappearing. We don't know where they are going. We are also challenged by the quality. If you look at the statistics that is now presented on the display, we have very few learners that are obtaining A stars, A's, and B's, and we have more learners that are obtaining E and F in national examination. So we are struggling to reach, or for our learners to obtain, the quality symbols. We tried to link the challenges to the globally identified challenges in education, which the world needs to take action in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 4 by 2030. We have identified lack of funding for education. We know that, as our ED indicated yesterday, we are receiving the biggest chunk of the national budget, but the biggest part, it's covering the wage bill. And the second one, having teachers is one issue. And having the teachers that are not trained is another issue. If you can have a teacher who have gone through the training, but if that teacher did not qualify the qualification that we are talking about today, then that teacher cannot provide quality education to the learners. The classrooms, as I indicated in one of the previous slides, we don't have enough. And we all know that the right environment which is needed for us to give proper concentration and for learning to take place is a proper classroom. But we have learners that some of them are learning outside and some of them are learning in traditional classrooms. The traditional classroom sometimes is made out of the branches that we cut from the trees. And then that is not really healthy. When it comes to laboratories, for us to implement, to do practicals, we are also struggling. And sanitation, we are also not doing well. In some schools, we do not have toilets, and it is really a problem to our girl children, because when they are on period, they need to use the proper toilet, but not the bushes. Learning materials are issues. We have textbooks, but in many cases they are shared. And we also have introduced the reading period in our curriculum, but we do not have readers and other core materials that are helping the learners to learn or to read. We are talking about motivating our teachers to improvise. But if you do not understand the curriculum, then it is difficult for you to improvise. The textbooks that we have are generalized, and the teacher is supposed to contextualize the content. But if you do not understand the content, then you cannot put it into context. The children with disabilities, we are implementing currently our inclusive education policy, and special education units are established at some schools. But we have learners with special needs that are closed out, that are not accommodated because the special schools are very few. We also have learners that are living with disabilities that are in rural areas. They do not have access to schools because the distances becomes too long for them to reach the school. In a way, it's a combination of discrimination, and we are not really happy about that. Sometimes, gender becomes an issue. We are implementing the pregnancy policy. And as we are preaching for the learners to be in school, the girl child to be in school while pregnant, I don't think we have enough activities that are addressing the boy child who impregnated the girl child. We also have issues like early marriages, dignity projects that are addressing the menstrual for girls and personal hygiene for boys. But in many cases, you hear people concentrating more on the girl child and the boy child, although he is included in the project, dignity project, the boy child in many cases is left out. We are not having that conflict, although internationally it's regarded as a challenge. But we are challenged by the people that are coming from their countries where the conflict is taking place, and we have to accommodate them in our system. Sometimes the curriculum where they are coming from is not really in par with what we are doing, and we face the challenge to look at their curriculum and place them in our schools. So distance from home to school, I spoke about it slightly, and it is becoming more and more not safer to the children. Whether you are in a township, if the school is far from you, then you have to wake up very early, and the situation becomes dangerous because the criminals will be waiting for you as you are walking to the school. On the road, then vulnerability might occur. Hunger and poor nutrition. In the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, we have introduced the school feeding program, and we are in the process of expanding this school feeding program to secondary school because we started with primary schools. But some learners do not, like the secondary ones, they really do not want to participate. They feel shy. They do not want to participate in the meals. And some families, they would like the learners to get the porridge and bring it home so that they can also benefit. It's challenging. But under that, we can also talk about the child or the homesteads that are headed by the children where there is no parent, and that becomes now a challenge to the learners because they will not have food. And in a way, they become either hungry or they are undernourished. The expense of education. We have the primary education grant and the secondary education grant, trying to respond to Universal Declaration of Human Rights for every child to have access to education. Parents are invited on voluntary basis to contribute to schools because the money that we are giving to schools, they are not enough. Then that also brings what Nenad presented to you yesterday, that there is imbalance in funding. The primary or the younger ones get less and the older ones get more. The picture or the graph which is presented is now talking to the last point that I was talking about. That is how we are spending our funds. And if you look at the darker, which is the darker area, which is more populated, we are talking about the personnel expenditures as percentage of total current expenditures. So more money again gets into the wage bill, and we have very few which is remaining to cover for other expenses. When we were preparing for this, we requested the teachers to give us their challenges, and that is the list which they gave us. And remember, for the teacher, it depends on who asked the question. If it is an official in the Ministry of Education, then they give you what you want to hear. And that is what they wanted us to hear. I highlighted the teaching methodology. I highlighted the inadequate preparation of teacher training, shortage of qualified teachers, lack of coordination between the teacher training institution and the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, especially on area of specialization. From the look of things, what the university is preparing teachers for, it does not match with the departments that we have or the subject areas that we have in the system. So, and then I also highlighted the unpreparedness, teacher training, teaching preparation, and assessment, and the list is long. So, what would the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture or community like the teacher education to assist us with? We need to be assisted with the teacher preparation so that we can overcome some of the challenges that we identified. We need professionals who are more subject experts. We need professionals who are desirable role models for the youth, like what the learners requested. We need professionals that remain current in knowledge and skills. We need professionals that live and work as inspirational leaders who have a sound character, exhibit virtues, values, ethics, and high moral standards, who are ICT literate, who are innovative, and who are problem solvers. So I can skip that. I can see my chairperson is looking at constantly becoming impatient. So we need to support UNESCO, who is supporting us by answering the questions, how do we prepare teachers for the future we want? We need to know how we should prepare learners for Industry 4.4 or Industry 4.5, although we cannot define the first and the second and the third as per So now we need to ask ourselves whether the current teachers fit to prepare learners to assist Namibia in reaching Vision 2030, which is around about 10 years from now. We also need to ask ourselves whether the teacher educators, the current teacher educators are current when it comes to content, linking content to context, preparing the teachers we want. We also need to ask ourselves whether we need more school of excellence where teaching practice can take place. And as per UNESCO, this year, when we celebrated the World Teachers' Day, the theme was Young Teachers, the Future We Want. We need to see how we can prepare the future we want. We need to create systems where student teachers are staying longer in schools for teaching practice so that they can be able to grasp the knowledge which is there. But not just at any school. We are appealing that we have schools where the teachers are prepared to guide the student teachers. We need to have policies and relevant circulars that we have in the ministry shared with student teachers and be linked to their teacher preparation content. We need platforms where the ministry can talk to student teachers as preparation of their teaching at school. We need proper selection of candidates, as it is indicated in this conference, to join the teaching course. so that we can end the recycling of problems. We need to have educators regulating body which is inclusive, just to model what the nursing regulating body is doing, because they have one professional body, but it's taking care of all the professionals in health. So the programs and the core activities should roll like the picture or the diagram or the model that we have, so that the teacher training institutions, the education managers, and the implementing agencies, which are schools, can have platform where they share ideas for us to be able to improve the system. I thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the two presenters. They are actually competent teachers, as they claim. They have proved it now, because they were under a lot of pressure actually to present compared to the time that they have been allocated. When you look at the program, there was no provision made for a discussion on this topic. I was asked by the Dean, Dr. Fillet, to get an indication whether you would like to discuss what you wanted to discuss in the breakaway groups in plenary, in other words, to respond to some of the issues that they have highlighted, or whether you want to keep as the program that you want to go into the plenary. Can I get an indication whether you want to discuss what you wanted to discuss in breakaway groups in this plenary, or whether you want us to have the plenary? Maybe I can have an indication by show of hands. It seems they... Look, you have three. We are supposed to go to breakaway group sessions now, dealing with early childhood development and junior primary, senior primary and junior secondary and senior education, basically responding to the issues that they have raised. Should we keep the breakaway, meaning we are going to breakaway sessions now, or do you want to discuss those issues in plenary? That is my question. So I think the best way is just to keep it as is, meaning the dean will come now to explain the breakaway group, but I take it you have already registered. What I want to say is to thank our presenters. The message that is coming out is an education system is a system. And if the system is not speaking to the other levels, you are going to have problems. And in the case of Namibia, we cannot afford a blame game of who is not doing what. Our responsibility is to correct if there are things to be corrected. Having said this, I thank you very much. I would also thank the rapporteur and the speakers. And I must declare that the rapporteur was my lecturer. And she was one of the lecturers that Professor Jansen was talking about. Thank you very much. I hand over to the Dean to see how to proceed.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Dr. Kudumu for handling his morning session so very well. Thank you very much. Round of applause. He unfortunately is traveling today, so he will not be joining us tonight. We will miss you.